What if I told you that the £10 you spent on takeaway last Friday could have been worth £10,000 one day? Not through some get-rich-quick scheme, not through crypto, not through anything complicated at all, just through one of the most misunderstood forces in personal finance, one that most people have heard of, but almost nobody actually feels until it's too late. Here's the strange part. The people who understand this concept don't feel like they're doing anything special. They're not sacrificing their whole lifestyle. They're not obsessing over spreadsheets. It just quietly happens in the background, like interest collecting on a savings account, which, funnily enough, is exactly what we're going to talk about. But before we get there, let me ask you something. When you picture someone building real wealth, what do you see? A high salary? A lucky investment? Maybe a property portfolio? Most people assume wealth is built in big, dramatic moments. A promotion, a windfall, a startup that takes off. What they don't picture is a tenor. Here's the belief that keeps most people stuck. We are wired to think about money in the present, right now, today. £10 feels like £10. It buys a meal, a few drinks, a bit of comfort. And that feels real. That feels tangible. The future version of that £10, that feels invisible, abstract, basically fake. This is called present bias, and it's one of the most powerful psychological forces that works against your financial life every single day. Your brain is literally built to value what's in front of you right now more than what could be yours years down the line. So when most people think about investing, they think, what difference does a tenor make? And that thought, that one small dismissal, is where the wealth gap between people quietly begins. Because here's what's actually happening every time you think that. Let's walk through this slowly, because this is where it gets interesting. Imagine you invest £10 today, not into anything exotic, just a simple index fund that tracks the stock market, which has historically returned around 8 to 10% per year on average over the long term. In year one, that £10 becomes £10.80, barely noticeable. You wouldn't even feel that. You'd probably spend more than that on a coffee and a sandwich without blinking. But here's where most people make the mistake of stopping. They look at that 80p and think, right, so this is pointless. They forget the most important word in investing: compounding. Compounding is what happens when your returns start earning their own returns. It's not just your original £10 growing, it's the growth growing, and then the growth on the growth growing, and so on, folding over and over on itself, like a snowball rolling down a hill. By year 5, that £10 is around £14.70. Still not exciting, right? By year 10, it's about £21.60. Okay, fine. By year 20, it's £46.60. By year 30, it's £100.60. But then something almost magical happens between years 30 and 40. By year 40, that single £10 becomes roughly £217. And by year 50, we're looking at somewhere close to £469. Now here's where you lean forward in your chair. What if, instead of investing just £10 once, you invested £10 every single week? That's £520 a year, less than most people spend on takeaways, subscriptions, or impulse purchases they forget about within a month. Over 40 years, at that same average return, you'd have invested roughly £20,800 of your own money. But the total value? Somewhere in the region of £160,000 to £180,000, depending on how the market performs. That's not a typo. That's compounding at work. Over half of that wealth isn't even money you put in. It's growth that was generated by previous growth. Money, making money, completely passively in the background of your life. Now, scale that up slightly. £20 a week, 50 pounds a week, and suddenly you start to see how ordinary people, not millionaires, not people with special access, build extraordinary wealth over time. So why doesn't everyone do this? Here's the psychology behind it, and it's worth really sitting with this. There's a concept called the tyranny of small decisions. Every day, we make hundreds of tiny financial choices, and none of them feel significant on their own. The $4 coffee, the $12 meal deal you didn't need, the streaming service you forgot to cancel, the round of drinks you put on the card. Each one, isolated, feels completely harmless, and it is. A single coffee is not going to ruin your financial life. But our brains don't naturally add these things up. We don't feel the cumulative weight of small decisions because we only ever experience them one at a time. The same thing works in reverse with investing. Because the growth is slow and gradual at the start, it doesn't feel like anything is happening. And when things don't feel like they're happening, we lose motivation. We stop. We tell ourselves we'll start when we earn more, when things calm down, when we have a bigger lump sum to begin with. And that delay? That's the most expensive mistake in personal finance. Not investing badly, not picking the wrong stocks, simply waiting. Every year you delay starting costs you more than almost any bad investment decision you could make. Time is the one ingredient money genuinely cannot replace. There's a reason Albert Einstein supposedly called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. Whether he actually said it or not, the idea is right, because compounding doesn't care how clever you are, how well connected you are, or how big your salary is. It only cares about one thing: how long you give it. So what do you actually do with this? Step 1. Start before you feel ready. You don't need a big sum, you don't need a financial advisor or a complex strategy. A simple stocks and shares ISA in the UK lets you invest up to £20,000 per year completely tax-free. Even starting with 10 or 20 pounds a week puts you ahead of the majority of people your age. Step 2. Automate it. Pay yourself first. Set up a standing order the day after your salary lands so the money moves before you have a chance to spend it. This removes the decision entirely. No willpower needed, no budgeting guilt. It just happens. Step 3. Leave it alone. The biggest enemy of a compound interest strategy isn't a market crash, it's you. The urge to check it constantly, to panic and pull out, to tinker when things feel uncertain. The investors who build the most wealth are often the ones who set it up and almost forget it exists. The goal isn't to watch the number grow every day. The goal is to look up in 10 years and feel mildly shocked. Here's the thought I want to leave you with. £10,000 didn't come from a single brilliant decision. It didn't come from timing the market perfectly or finding the next big thing before anyone else. It came from the compounded effect of small, consistent choices made by someone who understood something that most people don't. That £10 was never really £10. It was time wearing a disguise. And the uncomfortable truth is that right now, today, every one of us is either using that fact or ignoring it. There's no neutral position, because doing nothing with money isn't standing still. It's slowly falling behind as inflation quietly erodes the value of every pound sitting idle in a current account. The best time to start was the day you got your first paycheck. The second best time is today, even if today only looks like a tenner.